As has already been mentioned, today was set aside back in 1984, which for me seems like just yesterday. Uh, but I realize some of you younger people who are here weren't even born yet, which is very depressing when I think about it. Anyways, President Ronald Reagan at the time, who was the champion for pro-life things, said that we need to recognize the sanctity of life. And I want to be clear. When we say sanctity, some people like, what is that? And we're saying sacred or holy. We're talking about the sacredness of human life, the holiness of human life. As all of you already know, we find ourselves living in very interesting times. We are thankful to God for the fact that it seems like it's and to me obvious that He's on the move, and we see people's hearts and lives being touched on a daily basis all over the place, and for that we are grateful. But yet at the same time, while that's going on, at the same time, we find ourselves doing life in a very polarized and divided culture. And I want to talk to you about that for a few moments today. It's common today to hear people say that the United States is politically divided in a way that it has not been for many generations. In fact, some have likened our times to the times just prior to the Civil War. And while that claim may be arguably true, I want to suggest to you this morning it's really only scratching the surface. The division in our country may manifest itself politically, but it is much deeper than politics. Issues of divisiveness come and go, but the one issue that seems to be at what I would call the epicenter of our division politically is the issue of abortion. You know, my wife and I, as we're watching things unfold the last election in November, it seems like that if for instance, to use for an example, if Donald Trump was still pro-choice, he would be a perfect acceptable candidate for the other side, regardless of the other policies that he holds. Because it feels like that issue is what is at the epicenter of what divides us. Ultimately, abortion is a debate about human personhood. Let me say that to you again, that abortion is really a debate about human personhood. For those who study such things, it falls under the discipline of study called metaphysics. And I know that's a big word for me. I'm sure it's a big word for all of us. But metaphysics is simply the study of reality and existence. When you dig down a little deeper into this area of human personhood or the study of reality and existence, a guy by the name of Carl Trueman, he's a writer for World Magazine, he says it this way, when you dig a little deeper about this, he says, does the world have a meaning that transcends the individual and which we as individuals must discover to know who we are? Or is the world just raw material from which we as individuals create our own meaning by acts of will and unrestrained choice? Now, I know that might sound a little deep or a little bit heavy, but when it comes down to the issue of abortion, the question may be posed like this: is the baby in the womb a person with meaning and reality, or is the baby in the womb just stuff? And if it's just stuff, then I can decide whether it enhances or inhibits my happiness. these are not simply political questions. They aren't questions about tax rates or open and closed borders or states' rights versus federal rights. These are questions that go to the heart of what it means to be human. And abortion is just the most obvious of these issues. We all know that we're currently dealing with matters of race, gender, LGBTQ plus rights are currently tearing our country apart politically. But when you dig a little deeper, we see again how the question is a matter of it's about being human. It's about being not politics, but human. To say we are politically divided is to miss the real problem. The real problem, listen, if you don't hear anything else I say this morning, I hope you will, but if you don't hear anything else, the real problem that we are facing and dealing with is that we no longer agree upon an understanding of reality upon which we can sustain a unified society. I have to read that again. The real problem is that we no longer agree upon an understanding of reality upon which we can sustain a unified society. We are dealing with what many have dubbed or called dueling ideas of reality. Dueling ideas of reality. That's why you can look at some who are saying and doing things and see it as peculiar at least and crazy at best. Y'all know what I'm talking about? You can look at stuff and say, what are people thinking, right? Well, I just want you to know that those same people are looking at us in the very same way. It's because we have dueling realities going on. If I could borrow or draw upon the movie from 1999 of The Matrix to illustrate my point. Many of you maybe have seen that movie before. I watched that movie years ago. Pastor Andy was still here back when that movie came out, and he said, "You got to see The Matrix. You have to see it. You got to check it out." I checked it out. I had no idea what was going on. Absolutely no idea. I kept asking Jody, I said, what are they doing? Where are they? Are they in or are they out of the Matrix? And so on and so on. She said, I don't know either. So, two old people there watching a movie back then, we had no idea what was going on. But this I did come to discover, that there were people living in the Matrix, and that was their reality, and people who chose to live outside, if I got it right, in another reality that was outside the Matrix. If I got that? Now, Matrix, listen, this is the definition. The matrix, by definition, means the systems and structures in society that keep us bound to traditional ways of thinking and living. So you've got that matrix that a group of people choose to identify with and live in, and then you've got others who choose to live in a different reality where those things are not the same. Does that make sense? Both ways of thinking become a person's reality, but I just want to say they are in many ways mutually exclusive, meaning they're much different from one another. John Adams, one of our founding fathers of our country, wrote a letter to the Massachusetts militia on October 11th, 1798. This was 10 years after the Constitution of our country was ratified. This is what he says. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Let me paraphrase that for you. The Constitution was set up for people to live in the matrix of fearing God. Did y'all catch that? That's how the Constitution was designed. This will work if people fear God. What he's also saying is if people choose to live in a different matrix, in a different reality, this Constitution won't work. It won't work. And so you have this, constantly this going on. He said in that same letter, he said, unbridled human passions, nobody ever quotes this part, but this is part of that letter. Unbridled human passions would break the strongest cords of our Constitution like a whale going through a fisherman's net. That's very sobering. What does all that mean? It means that if we leave it up to us to decide what is reality, we will end up in a most miserable place. In fact, in that same letter, he said, this country will be the most miserable habitation in the world. And here we are. Here we are. With dueling realities, dueling ways of how people interpret life, how people interpret humanity. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there is a word that is being used on a regular basis out there in our civil discourse. It is the word dehumanization. It gets used in this way. If anybody would raise questions about things people are doing, it is to dehumanize them. For example, to question the wisdom of transgender hormone treatment for young children is to dehumanize trans people. The logic at work here is obvious. To tell people that what they may be thinking or doing is wrong denies that they are human. That assumes the definition of humanity is tied to an unbridled freedom of the individual to do and be whatever they choose. That's what we're contending with. This is the divide that is devouring our culture. We don't simply disagree on tax policy. We no longer agree on what it means to be human. The political divide over abortion rests upon a much deeper philosophical divide over what it means to be human. And that divide has significance well beyond the status of a child in the womb. The challenge we find ourselves as Christians engaged in is the ability to hold on tight to the reality we know to be true. I'm telling you, here's the challenge. Hanging on tight to the matrix, to the reality that we know to be true. And yet at the same time, lovingly bring into question the views of another reality that might be outside of our matrix. Anybody? Anybody dealing with this stuff? It's everywhere. It's the ability to confront an ideology someone else holds and yet still love them. In the olden days, we used to say it's a matter of hating sin and loving the sinner, right? All I know this is, and it would be good for you to spend as much time as you possibly can reading the Gospels because Jesus was awesome at this. He was so awesome at being able to go right past the political issue right to the real issue at hand. And I think we, as believers, as Christians, we've got to become much more adept at being able to do that. The first thing we need to do is be very clear about what we believe and why we believe that all human life is sacred. I got nothing. We need to know and be clear in our matrix, in our position, in our reality, that all human life, in the womb, out of the womb, is sacred. Thank you. It starts with what theologians call the Imago Dei. The Imago Dei. That is Latin for the image of God. The image of God. I'd like to read to you. You're starting to say to yourself, when is he going to get unpolitical and talk about the Bible? Here we go. You ready? Here we go. We're there. I'm going to read to you from Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. You've likely heard these verses before, but I want to read them to you again. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, Imago Dei, he created him. Male and female, he created them. That's what it says. Right at the very beginning of our scriptures. Now, the Bible account of reality, which I would suggest that that's what you subscribe to, not some humanistic version of reality, not some atheist view of reality, but a biblical view of what is actually real. The biblical account of reality concerning mankind starts with God creating us in his image. Think about that for just a second. Stop right there. God creating us in his image. It doesn't say that about anything else God created. Only humans were created in the image of God. The Imago Dei. Only us, only you were created in the image of God. Only humans are uniquely different from the rest of creation. Listen, some of you know now for the last couple years, we got a dog. Much to my chagrin at start, I wasn't in favor of it, but it was either the dog move in or I move out, one of the two. My wife gave me a choice, right? I'm joking, you know that. But I wasn't happy. We've been 12 years free of animals. And it was a tremendous freedom. You never had to think about, oh, they have to go to the bathroom. There was none of that. It was all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. It was all good. Loved every 12 minute of the 12 years. And we got a dog. And I have to tell you, I have to be honest, I've grown to really like this dog. I hate to admit it, but I have really grown to like this dog. But we had a deal. I'm trying to illustrate something here. We had a deal when our kids were growing up at home. Nobody, us parents, them kids, nobody was allowed to say shut up. You just weren't allowed to say those words. They were like swear words in our home. You couldn't say shut up. I couldn't say shut up to my wife. My wife couldn't say shut up to me. We couldn't say shut up to our kids. Our kids couldn't say shut up to us. They couldn't say it to each other. You get the point. I just want to say to you, we don't have the same rules when it comes to the dog. We don't have them. They're not there. And when that dog's barking, I'm like, shut up! And it feels so good. It feels so good. I can't say it to anybody. I can't say it to you. Feels like the only person I can say it to is myself. Shut up, But we got the dog, and I can say shut up to the dog. You know why? Because that dog's not made in the image of God. Only you are made in the image of God. There is a holiness. There is a sacredness about every human life. Even those you would consider your enemies. They are made in the image of God. That is a complete mind blower, and I don't think anybody really totally understands what all that means. But I do know that we're different from the rest of creation. I want to read to you another passage. And then I want to do a little exercise to illustrate this point. In Genesis chapter 5, verses 1 through 3, there is a recap of what I just read to you before in Genesis 1. There's a recap. It says it like this. When God created man, or mankind, he created them male and female and blessed them. And when they were created, he called them man, or Adam. Now, when Adam had lived 130 years, listen now, this is what I want you to hear. He had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. Do you hear the similar language? We're reminded in this moment that Adam was made in the image of God. And then Adam went on to have a child that was made in Adam's image. In his what's it say here? In his own likeness, in his own image, and named him Seth. I want to illustrate this for just a second, but I need Amy. Could you come up? Would you mind coming up here for just a second? Rob, would you mind coming? You'll have to put your phone away, but go ahead. And Evan, maybe you could come up. Evan, come on up. Sorry, no problem. I know it was the Bible. It was the Bible. Come right on up here. Everybody needs to see it. It was the Bible. It was the Bible. Don't worry. It wasn't on Marketplace or anything like that. It was the Bible. Probably ordering lunch someplace. All right. So, I want to show you this little example that I think will help all of us. This first picture that I have here, I'm going to give to Evan right here. He's going to hold that. Just hold that picture up right there. See it? Can everybody see it? I know for those of you far in the back, maybe you find it hard to see the detail of it, but you can at least see it, right? You see it? This is, for our purposes of illustration, this is the image of God right here. Right here. This image right here represents all that there is in terms of sacredness, holiness, perfection. This is the image of God, the Imago Dei. Here he is in his glory. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him right there. Very nice. Now, I'm going to give this picture to Amy right here. You could hold that right there. This is mankind. You see, look at here. Look, see this? This is the same image as this one right here, right? Right here. This represents Adam, mankind, Eve, male and female, God created them. Right here, we got his image. He created us in his image, right? Got it? Okay, hold that thought. Here's another one. Here is this one right here. It looks very similar to this one. Did you notice that? And did you notice this one looks very similar to this one? But that represents Seth. That picture right there represents the likeness, the image of Adam. Here, this one is the image of God. This one, Adam, now becomes, his son becomes like the image of Adam, who is the image of God. Do you see that? Now, if you were able to get up close to these pictures, this is first generation copy. Do you know what I mean by that? In other words, I took the picture off the computer, I sent it to the printer, first generation picture, right? Then I took that picture right there, and I made a copy of it, a copy of that picture. So if you were to come up here and look closely, you would find that that picture is not identical to this picture. There is a likeness, right? But it's not the same. You follow what I'm saying? There is a ton of common stuff going on here, but this is a little weaker. And if you look closely at the pictures, I haven't got time for that. Anyway, it's a little less. Then I took this one and put it in the copier and made that one right there. Right? The point of what I'm trying to illustrate here is that it doesn't matter how many generations you would make this copy, right? It still bears the likeness and image of the original copy. In the image of God, he made us as human beings. You are, we are, everyone you meet is a bearer of God's image. That, listen, we may be different than dogs and cats and animals. We may have a soul and we have the ability to be moral and intellectual and all those things. But by the way, my dog, somebody said, well, I don't know if we're all that much different. Listen, hold up. I'm coming back to you. Stay put. Hold up. I want to tell you something right now. My dog, this dog we got, is very smart. Totally smart. We say, go find your ball. She goes and finds her ball. We say, you're not getting any treat. And she barks. And then I get to say, shut up. Right? That's how it works. That's my life right now. That's what we're doing. But I'm going to tell you something right now. That dog isn't dealing with the same things you and I are dealing with. That's all I can tell you. They're like, where's my food? I'm not saying we don't think that, but my dog's not worried about tax policy. My dog's not sitting, laying in his crate going like, dude, I wonder when they're going to get rid of abortion forever. My dog's not doing that. We have those things different from the rest of creation. But what makes us, apart from that, what makes us sacred, what makes us set apart, holy, is right here. You and I are made in the image of God. Only us. Nobody else. Okay, you guys did a great job. You're so patient, so kind. Thank you. Yeah, give it up for him. You can go back to Facebook now. Right there. Listen, this is the reality that you and I should be living in and espousing. Espousing means advocating for. Espousing means telling other people. We are made in the image of God. Now, some would suggest, when does that all start to happen? For me, theologically, it starts to happen even before an egg and a sperm come together. I believe the Bible teaches that He had us in His heart and in His mind before that connection even occurred. We need to advocate for the sanctity of human life. Now, as it pertains to the question of reality or the reality of others, I want to start by saying we have to approach our fellow human beings with the understanding that they also are made in the image of God. They are, whether they know it or believe it, they are still made in the image of God. We must give people the dignity or the meaning of worth and respect simply because they are made in the image of God, regardless of what reality they may be exposing or living in. Secondly, we must approach people with the understanding that they cannot out-sin the cross of Christ. Listen, if you're here this morning and you've wrestled with shame as it relates to this area, I want to say to you this morning, you cannot out-sin the cross of Jesus Christ. Whatever they might believe, whatever reality they live in, whatever they may have done or are doing, there is forgiveness available for them because of what Christ did on the cross. Listen, this is how, my friend Tim, this is how we punch the devil in the face. Listen, I was thinking about it this morning. I was thinking about, this thought came to me. I haven't worked it through yet, but I throw it out there for you to think about. One of the things the Bible tells us is that Lucifer, when he was an angel before the fall, that his desire was to become like God. Could it be that why he's so ravenous towards us is because we are the likeness of God. God made us in His image. And He's ticked off about it. Because the very thing He wanted, you and I got to have. He's jealous. Slimy thing. So, number one, we have to deal with people believing that they are also made in the image of God. We have to deal with people, secondly, believing that whatever they're espousing, whatever they're doing, they cannot out-sin the cross of Christ. And then finally, the only hope we have of getting someone out of their matrix and encouraging them to come into this matrix, the only shot we got of doing that is to invite them into our reality. And the only way it's going to happen is if they accept that invitation. And there's no amount of hollering, spitting, swearing, any of that is going to get someone to change what they believe to be their reality and come over into what we understand as reality. That's not going to do it. The only shot we got is to invite them to come into, because they are, we can tell them, you are made in the image of God. Come on over and see what all that means. Come on in. You are welcome to embrace a different reality. We should let people know. Our first starting point of outreach and evangelism is letting people know that we believe that they are image bearers of God. I'm talking about people who are a different place than we are. They are image bearers of God. They are sacred. They may not be acting sacred, but they're still sacred. I want to close with this. I don't even know where I'm at on time. Oh, good. All right, so I want to close with this. This is in Genesis 9. I don't have it for you on the screen. I leave you with this thought. This is after the flood. Y'all remember the flood, right? And God now, after the waters have subsided and he's back having dialogue with Noah. Let me see. I didn't write down the verse I want to read. Here we go. Noah says, it's like he started over, right? And he's saying to Noah and his family, he's saying this: be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. Remember, he had said that back in the beginning, right? The fear and dread of you will fall upon the beasts of the earth and all the birds of the air, upon every creature that moves along the ground, and upon all the fishes. Do you hear the similar language that I read to you? But like you get to have dominion over all this stuff, right? All right? Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. I've underlined that verse in my Bible. That verse I really like right there. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. Right, there it is. All right. Now listen to what he says. He says, just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. All right. Now, listen. But you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an account from every animal, and from each man also I will demand an accounting of life of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made man. Now, let me try to make that sense of that for you. God is saying to Noah, the earth, knock yourself out. Eat whatever you want. Be blessed, fruitful, multiply, have dominion over that which I've created. It's yours to enjoy, right? But when it comes to humans, life is sacred. And why? Because only humans are made in the image of God. The Imago Dei. It all starts there. It starts there and, frankly, ends there. The Imago Dei, the sacredness of human life. I'm going to invite you to stand right now. I want to pray as we close out this morning. I want to pray. If you are here today and you've never really heard that before, that you are an image bearer of God, I pray this morning that you receive that. I pray that helps you secure your identity in who you are, because that is the matrix, that is the reality that the Bible conveys to us. When you have that revelation that you are an image bearer of God, people say, well, I don't know, I don't know who I am. I don't know, why am I here? All that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, it starts to get clearer when you understand you are an image bearer of God. I also realize as I pray this morning, there may be someone here today who thinks that what you have done, what you currently do, is beyond Christ's forgiveness. I'm going to say to you this morning, flat out, that is a lie. There is nothing that has transpired in your life that the cross of Jesus Christ cannot forgive. You just simply need to ask Him. Ask Him to forgive you. And dude, it is done. It is over with. You cannot out-sin the cross of Christ. Lord, this subject matter that we find ourselves contending with in our society and our culture goes right to the root of who you are, the Imago Dei. You have made us like you. You have made us after your image. And Lord, I pray that you would cause that to be a revelation. You would illuminate and enlighten that truth in our hearts and lives. That we would have, as John Adams said, Lord, a moral awareness, an understanding of God that is such that our very lives are special. Not because we're special, but because you made us in your image. That changes everything. Lord, let that revelation ring true in all of our hearts. May it be our lead when we find ourselves in conversation with people, Lord, that they are made in the image of God. And Lord, for those who may have come here today with stuff, baggage, some guilt, some shame, I pray in Jesus' name that they would see how wide, how deep, how awesome your love is for them, and how much forgiveness you have if we only reach out our hands towards you and say, Lord, I want to receive your forgiveness. Lord, I pray people would walk away from here today shame-free, guilt-free, male or female, Lord, that they would walk away today saying that is in my past and behind me. I'm not carrying that around anymore. And Lord, I pray for our country, for our nation. I know there's already been prayers lifted up for that. But I pray, Lord, we feel the grappling, Lord. I pray this morning for the Supreme Court, Lord, as they are faced to weigh all these many matters, that these deeper issues that come to light. Lord, I pray that they would find on your side, that they would find on the side of the sacredness of human life. And I ask, Lord, that you would help us to be great carriers of this message of how valuable people are. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.